we hoped so. If we don't, we will obviously like to follow up with questions. So first of all, Minister, I'd like to make an introduction. So my name's Deputy Hilary Jeune. I'm the Chair of the Environment, Housing and Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel.
Deputy Tom Coles, Vice Chair.
David Johnson, Constable St Mary.
Deputy David Wall, panel member.
Deputy Alex Curtis, panel member.
Minister.
Constable Andy Gere, Minister for Infrastructure.
Tristan Dodd, Associate Director, Highways, Traffic and Infrastructure.
Ellen Littlechild, Group Director for Ops, Transport and Sport.
And Tim Daniels, Director of Property Holdings.
And we've got apologies from the Constable of St Helier. I'm not sure we can ever schedule his diary to do that.
Well, hopefully in 2025 we will see more of him.
Yeah.
So thank you. So Minister, first of all, I'd like to pass you over to Deputy Curtis, who will start off proceedings today with Fort Regent.
Thank you. And Minister, you will be aware that the panel has brought an amendment to the proposed budget 2025 to 2028 that is seeking for the insertion into the budget of a head of expenditure line for Fort Regent as a development project. Could you update the panel on progress of the feasibility assessment being undertaken by the States of Jersey Development Company?
Yeah, of course. And I think, with respect, I think the amendment is probably 12 months too early because we're not in a position at this stage to identify the cost and or the funding. What we do know is that the States of Jersey Development Company are using up to £3 million, which was retained after the College Gardens project for design and to get us up to a planning stage, and part of that money will also be used to relocate the soft play area for a period of time. So we would hope to have the roof design finished by next month, excuse me, and put in a planning application for any works required on the roof. We then hope to make a funding decision by the end of February as to how we will fund the project at Fort Regent. I think I've spoken to you before about the importance of ensuring we've got enough revenue to operate Fort Regent and maintain Fort Regent before we start any work there, because I think we've made that mistake far too often as a government and previous governments where we don't think about the cost of maintaining a property. And then we plan to go to public engagement in February and March, so get feedback from the public as to what we hope to deliver there and get their input into what they would like to see there, with a view to planning applications being lodged by May 2025.
Okay. Minister, I think £3 million obviously being within the College Garden retained profits and being kind of directed to development works from a design and feasibility stage is probably the first time we've heard that number. And of course, your team and the team of SOJDC are quite aware of how to cost and schedule design works compared to build costs. And there's very standard industry splits between how much you might budget for design versus build. And a figure of 3 million sounds quite like there'll be a significant requirement for capital on the project. Are you comfortable that spending money on designs to the tune of 3 million will deliver a project that, from a capital budget, is affordable to whoever's paying?
So a significant investment in design, which is about half of that figure. Monies have been identified also, as I mentioned earlier, to relocate the soft play, because the plan is to get the work, get the fort cleared and get the work started. So that is really key. So that expenditure will be shown in the SOJDC accounts. So that's where it will be displayed.
And of course, the panel has taken its position to bring an amendment to the budget. And we were wondering whether you agreed as Minister that actually as a publicly owned asset, and we heard yesterday from the Chief Minister that it is intended to remain a publicly owned asset, that there should be a line within the budget for expenditure on Fort Regent, whether feasibility, design or development works. You mentioned it might be too early, but do you agree that the principle that we should be accounting for public assets that are not development and disposal assets or investment assets within the budget and not within our state-owned entities accounts?
No, I think it's, as I said earlier, I think it's 12 months too early. So the the expenditure I believe, will be shown in the SOJDC accounts. We have commissioned them to do the work. I think I've said around this table in previous panel hearings or next door that there's no intention to sell Fort Regent or give Fort Regent to an ALO. We're using the design capabilities and the engineering capabilities of our ALO to get us to a position where, firstly, we can put in planning application for the roof, and secondly, we can go to consultation with the public.
And last time we spoke about this, Minister, I raised, on behalf of the panel, the question as to the capacity and expertise in the States of Jersey Development Company, highlighting they are, of course, a small team who often contract and consult with other parties. And you endeavoured to go and speak to SOJDC to understand their internal resources. What is your understanding now of the expertise that they have on this type of project following those discussions?
We're due to meet with SOJDC week after next, actually. But my understanding is they are using in-house resource initially with some external support, but I'm not sure of the level of that support. We've used SOJDC to help us actually with the Western Bus Gateway because they do have people there with landscape, is that what you call it, landscape designs?
Yeah, they've got expertise in landscape architecture and project management, and of course they have within their own sort of frameworks some traffic and other expertise they can call in upon.
As in skills that they have?
Not internally.
Not retained talent.
Internally, they've got landscape architecture and project management skills.
Okay, as part of their kind of full-time staff base?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, if I may. With previous Fort Regent projects, there's always been some doubt, I suspect, as to which scrutiny panel should be made involved. It's when an economic scrutiny panel, they were the one involved, and again, there was some concern that SOJDC, for instance, is a state-owned entity. The normal procedure will be for the corporate services panel to quiz them on matters. How do you see this going forward, given that infrastructure is going to be very much a part of the arrangements? Would you anticipate that this panel will continue to ask you and...
Yeah, more than happy for this panel to ask me and or other panels. So the Regeneration Steering Group, of which I'm a member, chaired by the Chief Minister, is where the work gets reported into. The day-to-day work is reported into the Infrastructure Public Holdings team. So I'm happy to continue answering questions where I can on this subject.
Okay, that's a future discussion at our end, maybe.
And so lastly on this, because we've got a lot of topics today from my side, is around the public engagement. And of course, the Fort has been through many iterations of designs. We saw from a recent answer to a written question the significant expenditure undertaken by SOJDC on plans back in 2020. But looking to 2025 and the work being undertaken, what consideration has been given to the format of public engagement?
I hope to find out more detail about that at the meeting in 2 weeks' time. But I think we've identified in the timeline there'll be public engagement, initial public engagement, in February and March of next year.
Okay.
So I don't know if that will be focus groups. I don't know if that'll be questionnaires, Q&A sessions, drop-in sessions, a combination of all those things. I don't know the detail at this time, but we're happy to share that with you as soon as we know.
And the plan is that will be undertaken by the State of Jersey Development Company?
I believe so at this time, yeah.
On that, the panel, or I note that former consultations published by our state-owned entity often have performed groupings within consultation feedback, grouping both neutral, positive and strongly positive results together when advertising outcomes. And that's not, from my experience, a good statistical or transparent way to highlight public sentiment because you may have a lot of public indifference, many objectives, a few supporters, and if you group your neutral with your positives, are you going to ensure when you speak to them that this is about open, non-leading questions and that the public get a say, that's a genuine say, in the future of the Fort?
Well, I would totally agree with you. You know, for me, it's about getting the best And if you're going to do public consultation, you best listen to what the public have got to say. Otherwise, you're wasting their time and your time. So I'm sat here with a genuine intention that we're going to do genuine public consultation. So that would be my expectation.
And just on a final question on the soft play, you were saying about the relocation of the soft play. Has there been a site identified?
There is a site identified on the waterfront, so it's in town still, and so that will have to be coordinated to avoid school holidays and try and ensure that it's moved at a time when there's least usage, so there's less disruption. Yeah.
Sorry, you made a comment there about moving to the waterfront. Have you got a specific site in mind at the waterfront?
Well, I have to apologise. I've been told, but I don't know the waterfront intimately, so I couldn't tell you exactly where it is. But we can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
clearly it's currently a vacant site. Yeah.
So, sorry, obviously, just on that, the waterfront is, as assets are owned by States of Jersey Development Company. Is the plan, and we, of course, the Fort Regent is owned on behalf of the public directly by government. Is there a plan to enter commercial terms with SOJDC for any soft play so that we are, in essence, leasing a site to host at, to keep clean?
My understanding is that the cost of the soft play is we have to hire a facility for us to locate it. Yeah.
And we have to pay for that as government. Yeah.
Well, yes. Although it'll come out, it'll be SOJDC's funds from the college gardens that will fund that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Minister. If there's no other questions on Fort Regent, we'll move to the skate park. So can you provide an update on the project of a new town skate park?
I can. I should probably say firstly that work on the pavilion at the Kennebec has started. Due to finish it in February, I believe. The lights are up and running. There was a very successful 2-day event there. Called, I keep forgetting the name, the Bowler Croc, which I visited and watched in awe of the young man in a wheelchair, which was absolutely amazing, fantastic. And I had our French mayor with us, our twinning mayor, and she was totally amazed by the facility that is up there. In terms of the St Helier Park, we are currently in seeking pre-application planning advice. That's been going on for some time. I think we've been dealing with the historic environment team for 4 months. We've met on site, officers have met on site, and we expect to lodge an application in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Brilliant. And could you be clear about the source of the funds for the project in 2025?
So yes, we will be moving funds to pay for the skate park. I was given that assurance by Treasury colleagues that we could do that, because I'd given an assurance not only to you but also to Deputy Stevenson. We met with Deputy Stevenson and we wrote to Deputy Stevenson confirming that we were continuing with this project, and I don't know which pot it comes from, but I'm assured that we have got the funds to do that.
And we've discussed before, Minister, about the need to be flexible within the infrastructure budget because of things that come up and prop up. Would it be coming from an infrastructure?
That is my understanding, absolutely. Yeah.
There's a separate vote for sports money and for the skate park. The money had been pushed back to future years, but we've had those conversations with the Treasury that there's going to be a bit of rebalancing, so the money should be available next year. If not, then we'll reprioritise within the existing capital votes.
And what would you say would be the reprioritisation? What would then not be prioritised if the skate park goes ahead?
It could be something to do within parks and gardens or in one of those areas. We'd have to go through.
So we may delay an irrigation programme, for example. So we've got flexibility. We want to do everything, clearly, but we're committed to providing the skate park, and that's what we plan to do.
So just wondering, you say get pre-app advice for the planning application, and I'm not sure if I've missed or if it's not become public knowledge or whether it's able to become public knowledge yet, but where are you thinking for the location of the St Helier skate park?
Well, I think we've shared that with you before, I think, at South Hill.
Okay, this south.
So it is near the reversing bay, on the bottom reversing bay.
Okay.
So there's stakeholder engagement with neighbours, there's stakeholder engagement with the people that use the reversing bays. I'm not sure where else has reversing bays actually. And the plan is once the skate park is opened at Fort Regent, that the area will then be able to use for wheeled activity. So we're looking at the potential there to be able to train young people how to ride a bike, for example, with a mock-up street and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
So just kind of follow up on that one. Is your assistant minister aware that that's the location plan for the skate park?
Yes, absolutely.
He is. Okay.
Thank you, Minister. And the panel notes that there's been calls for better signage and stricter regulations around helmet wearing for children at places like Le Cannevet and other skate parks that are coming. And in April, you answered a question in the States Assembly that Le Cannevet skate park signage goes beyond British standards outlining safety guidelines for skate park facilities. In your view, is the level of safety signage for skate parks sufficient to prevent serious injury?
I have to say I'm disappointed with the new signage at Le Cannevet because I thought that the signage that was shared with me by a member of the public with the Constable of St Martin and other members looked a little bit more interactive. It was a picture, and we've got signs up, blue signs saying wear your helmet, which is a bit prescriptive. So I think work is going to carry on to improve the signage, but we are committed to encouraging people to wear helmets when using those facilities.
What is your view on whether regulation should be introduced to make helmets mandatory at Jersey skate parks? Is this something that in the insurance, for example,
I think it's very difficult. I think we've probably spoken about this before. The fact that the area is not staffed, youth service have people there for good amounts of time, but the area is not staffed as is the case with other skate parks. And so I think it's very hard to regulate. I think what we need to do is to educate people, to encourage people, educate users, educate their parents and guardians. But I don't know how you regulate and enforce that regulation. I'd much prefer to do it in a cooperative way.
And so do you foresee some funds to support within that skate park, developing a new one to be able to make the signage, clearer, the information clearer, but also with the youth workers who are there to be able to kind of educate a bit more and work with charities and partnerships?
So I'm not responsible for youth workers, so I can't comment on what they do or don't do. Certainly we're going to do better with the signage. As I said, I was personally disappointed when I went up to view the signage. So we will get that better. We will carry on engaging with people who have an interest in that. And, I think I visited Guernsey Skate Park last year and was very impressed with the safety they had there. They had somebody running a little cafe, and inside at the back of the cafe they had helmets, they had skateboards, they had knee protectors, elbow protectors, and so that facility was manned and was restricted opening hours, I believe. But it was a lot smaller than our site, so to try and manage our site with one person, I'd say was very difficult.
Is that something that would happen with the development of the pavilion? Would there be a space where...
It's more of an opportunity for people to shelter, for youth workers to talk, and for youngsters to talk to each other. I don't think there's any plan currently for refreshments to be sold. I don't know if there's anything. Yeah.
Thank you. So moving on, Minister, can you provide the panel with your understanding of the scope of the Deputy Chief Minister's project Breakwater in terms of its overlap with your ministerial remit?
So the Deputy Chief Minister is working on a project, reporting into the Regeneration Steering Group, which I mentioned earlier. The project remains in development. We've got officers from our operational team and our sport team working with colleagues. The until the scope of the project is agreed by the council ministers, there's no budget or funding mechanism in place at the moment. But I would welcome additional investment in infrastructure and/or sporting facilities. So.
And just on kind of coming back to that question, understanding this its scope, how does it overlap with yours? Like, what are the areas? Because of course, I suppose you need to have that understanding ahead of going to the Council of Ministers where decisions would be made. But
Yeah, so
before...
we're still in a scoping stage at the moment. So, you know, we need to make sure that Jersey remains a place where people want to come and visit, where people want to live, where people want to invest in. So we have to invest in our, I call it our product, basically. Jersey, I've described Jersey as a product in that instance, and we've got to keep investing in that product. So there's a lot of work being done in the background, and I talk to the Deputy Chief Minister, officers talk to colleagues, and I think as soon as we've got something that's ready to bring to yourselves and other states members, we look forward to sharing that with you.
Would you not say, Minister, that product of Jersey being a project, you know, and I suppose we're talking about that infrastructure in the public realm and all those elements that are under your ministerial scope, would you not think that the project would be more for the Minister for Infrastructure to take on?
Well, I think it's initially the project is broader than that, and I think if we agree to do areas within my ministry, then clearly I'll be responsible for those areas. But at the moment, it's a scoping exercise. You know, it includes a whole range of different things, which I don't know all the detail, but I'm quite excited by some of the things. But equally, the challenge will be, how do you fund this? If we make additional investment, how is that funded? That's always the challenge.
Just to understand the kind of what you've seen as a member of the Regeneration Steering Group and Council of Ministers, this is a project that is under scoping. It has, in essence, an accountable minister, from what it sounds like. Are you aware of how it crystallised? It started. Was it a sign off by the Chief Minister himself in a decision? Was it announced in Council of Ministers? Because it's appeared, as you say, it's in development. And I guess, I think the panel's interested to know, how did that inception occur? What have you seen to give you assurance that it's going to, from your side, because it sounds like it would still have a lot of infrastructure elements, perhaps, that it started on solid footings of governance?
Well, I think it's an area that we've discussed at both council ministers and the Regeneration Steering Group, and I've also had discussions with both the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister. We've spoken about the need to invest. We've had to make some tough decisions for this budget. The public realm, for example, we had hoped to spend £5 million next year, and currently it's down to £2 million, and I think people want nearly £4 million in amendments, so taken out of the £2.5 million, so those numbers won't work. But I think we need to work on what would be included, what wouldn't be included. We've got aspirations for sporting facilities, for regenerating existing sporting facilities, but there's an enormous amount of work to do before we get anywhere near a formal proposal and a review of how that formal proposal would be funded. But I think we can't spend too much time looking at our boots. We've got to look forward at the horizon, see what's coming, and it's a combination of both. So it hasn't impacted on the work that the department has done. The team have worked, as I said earlier, operationally, and the sports team with colleagues, and continues to do that.
And the understanding from the panel is that the Fort Regent, and as you've mentioned, some of the public realm projects are within this scope. Yeah. Could you tell the panel how this aligns with the SOJDC's feasibility assessment for Fort Regent and with ongoing projects on the public realm? So how does that fit in?
Well, what we've got to do, I haven't done it very well. I've tried to explain that. The work that SOJDC are doing at the moment is the early design work. If we're going to invest in the product of Jersey, that has to include Fort Regent. I've made my point very clear time and time again, but I'll repeat it. We have to have a plan for revenue so that if we build something, we can maintain it. Yeah, that has got to be the way we go forward. We cannot keep building things without having a revenue line in the budget to maintain those things. So Fort Regent is included in that. It's sporting facilities are included in that. The level of detail is still to be discussed and decided. But that work's ongoing. It's not doesn't impact on the work SOJDC are doing. As I said, the RSG have got a meeting in 2 weeks' time, I think it is. There you are.
Just a question. I mean, the thing which is striking me is your budget is constantly under pressure, constantly being cut. Do you think public realm is being taken seriously by government?
Well, I think I'm hoping that the Assembly...
Public realm investment, I should say.
I'm hoping that the Assembly will take public realm investment seriously next week when we debate the budget. I think we've underinvested in some areas. There's no doubt about it. And, I think we've spoken about the timings of doing some work. So, my personal preference, I wouldn't have done Lamott Street when it was done, but that's happened. And I have to say, walking down Lamott Street last week, because we couldn't cycle, it looks really good. And I think if you look at Halkett Street, where we did a joint project with the parish of St Helier, looks really good. And I think we've got to do more of that. And I think, in terms of, we wanted to invest £5 million. We've agreed that to put a £2.5 million cap on that for 2025. And so, that is significant investment, but I would clearly like to do more. Equally, I've got to make sure I've got money for the drains, for the waste, all those things. So we've got to cut our cloth, David.
So, and I get that. And my follow-up question to that is one of about, you talked about the parish working with infrastructure in terms of the funding of Halkett Place. Do you see more of these kind of shared investments, these shared ways of funding things? Because if your budget is constantly under pressure, surely there has to be other ways of looking at how you talk about cutting a cloth, but actually how do you make the cloth bigger, and what kind of partnerships are required?
Yeah, so we're very keen to where it's appropriate to do pound for pound matching with the parish, because I think Halkett Street was a strategic priority for us. We've got other strategic priorities which we'd be very keen to work with the parish on. So I think that's, we want more people in St Helier living, working, and so we have to provide an environment which people want to be a part of.
Minister, when you were just talking, you said about that you've mentioned, and it's true several times in different hearings, about the need for generating revenue to make sure that the assets that are being developed are maintained. Does that mean within Project Breakwater that is focused on only assets that will generate revenue? Of course, for example, health doesn't necessarily generate revenue.
It doesn't. I use Fort Regent as an example. Yeah. Fort Regent, I, like many islanders, can remember Fort Regent as heyday. I spent a lot of my youth there, and it's tragic to see what's happened. We've seen plans for £250 million to be spent there, and nothing's happened. So the plans at the moment are much more achievable, in my opinion, but those plans need to include ways of generating revenue so that that facility can be maintained and kept up to date.
So does that mean Project Breakwater wouldn't have assets from the health estate, for example, because it won't be able to be generating the same kind of revenue as sports facilities?
Well, Project Breakwater will include could include a whole range of things, which could include facilities that generate revenue and facilities that don't generate revenue. So it's not decided what's in and what's out, and you need to speak to the Deputy Chief Minister if you want more detail today, because I'm here, I'm engaged with the process, I'm supportive of the process. Additional investment in infrastructure, whether that's public realm, Fort Regent, sporting facilities, I welcome all of that, but it's got to be deliverable, and we've got to have a way of funding that.
Of course, and I think that's where I suppose the panel is questioning. That is, of course, behind all these developments of this potential vision that hopefully we will get more information soon on. Needs that, of course, the infrastructure behind it. Later we'll be talking about the liquid waste, for example, or we've talked about in the past about the roads, and they need to be funded too. So it'd be interesting to see whether this becomes separate budget streams, and it takes away pressure on the infrastructure. If you're talking about Fort Regent sports facilities, etc., that also does fit under infrastructure and the infrastructure budget. It would then, I suppose, take away that pressure and put it in.
There's always going to be pressure, but it would alleviate some of the pressure, and it may mean that we can deliver some things quicker than we had anticipated. At the moment, we're just almost on the eve of the 2025 budget debate. We have had to cut our cloth accordingly. We spend far too much, in my opinion, in some areas, and my job is to ensure that we get investment in our infrastructure, and that's what I've tried to do whilst being part of a team and clearly recognising the importance of health, for example, education, and that is why, for example, we're only spending £2.5 million on public realm and not £5 million on public realm. I'd like to do much more, but.
So Project Breakwater, in a way, is innovative investment ideas for potential projects that are already in train or already projects that are current here. It's not new things that will then be added burden.
It could be a combination of both. I'm aware of the areas within the infrastructure. I'm not aware of all areas that may or may not be included. But I think we should be encouraging looking further ahead. Politics is a short life cycle, and we don't spend enough time thinking about the future.
Thank you. Connotab.
Yeah, before I go on to my subject, back to funding, the committee in Connotab on Monday had a presentation by the CEO of St. Jersey Development Company on the waterfront, and assured us that the proposals were at no expense to the taxpayer and were done within their budget. He did mention that the aquasplash comes within the overall project, but that's not within their budgetary remit. So presumably that will fall on infrastructure, will it?
Currently, we spend a significant amount each year on the aquasplash. I think there was one proposal to replace it. I think the current proposals are to enhance, refurbish it and enhance the facility. So, yeah.
So that is within your own remit, and you're aware of that, and we'll budget accordingly.
Comes out of the sport funding.
The sport fund, okay, well, I'll let another panel deal with that. Although, as you mentioned sport, I mean, again, the 1% allocated to sport are things like that going to be offset against that 1%?
I believe we spend more than 1% on sports, and I was expecting potential for an amendment to the budget for 1% on sport, but that didn't materialise. But I firmly believe we spend more than 1% of our annual budget on sport.
Okay, I'll leave it at that then. I think there are more questions which another panel might want to deal with. Yes, on to my own topic, really. A few general questions on Jersey property holdings, if I may. The first general one is, could you please detail how JPH or its procurement and tender process on matters being undertaken by JPH? A general question as to...
So I don't know the day-to-day detail. Tim will be able to help you with that.
So I think it depends on the scale of the procurement. There are different values that set different levels of process, all of which are determined by the Public Finance Manual and the commercial team within the corporate organisation. And depending on the scale, depends on whether we go to a tender process or whether there's an appointment of a panel or say depending on the scale and the scope of whatever's being done, there are procedures and processes that we adhere to.
Okay, on the tender process, for our information, is there a ceiling or a basement figure?
There is for right across government. You've got to apply to the Public Finance Manual.
Yeah.
I presume that's the same for.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah. So
Can you
that's,
remind me what that figure is?
So there are steps and stages. I think I'll probably be safer to send you the detail rather
Okay, I'll just try
than
to get-
recount it and get it wrong. But it's something like 2,500, a million.
All right, okay.
But there are
Think of
steps.
that. Leading on to a more specific question then, you may say it's a public finance law which limits it, but what's your policy regarding the use of external consultants when selecting tenders and materials, or is that again within your?
we are absolutely striving to reduce the use of external consultants, and I think it was the budget meeting that we had, or maybe the meeting before that, we discussed that. We have got a number of framework agreements which are still running on. So a framework agreement is where there's an approved contractor who's on a list of approved contractors and that we're able to use. We're constantly reviewing that, and I think Project Holdings and the rest of the department are still using external resource where it's needed, but I think there's been significant improvements in that, and I'm looking forward to an update on that, which hopefully we can share with you as well.
Okay, so for what you're suggesting therefore is you're reducing consultants where possible. Will that affect the overall performance of?
Well, that's the balance, David. We've got to, we've got some fantastic, and you've met some of these people, some fantastic engineers. We've got fantastic people all around the place, but they've only got a certain amount of capacity. And when we don't have the capacity or the trained people, we have to use external resource. And I think that's the case. We've recently seen that at Harvey Park, where we've used somebody from our framework agreement to provide advice, and that's the case today, and will be the case tomorrow, where we don't have in-house resource or in-house capacity, then we have to use external resource. But believe you me, I think the message is well and truly received from across the department that I'm not a fan.
I think the public as a whole have got that message, if that's any consolation to you.
Yeah. But we have the balance. We've got work we have to do, so we can't stop doing everything. But there is this balance, and I was delighted to hear on Friday that we're less reliant on consultants for our consultation with planning. So that was a positive thing to hear on a Friday afternoon for me.
Thank you for that. Moving on, if I may, to the Lido. Can you outline what changed in that situation from your earlier comments as to vacant possession to the extension, I believe we have now, of the present tenancy until the end of 2025?
Well, I think it's, as far as I'm aware, it's till Christmas Day on 2025 as opposed to 31st of December, but and I think that date's important because the loi, I think it's 1919, the appropriate notice had not been given, were advised, having been advised many times that we had given the appropriate notice. And so it was felt that we needed to just get on with it and sort it out. We're out for expressions of interest. I think to date we've had at least 4 expressions of interest, genuine expressions, and that process finishes at the end of next month. And then we go into more detailed work with those parties if they wish to proceed. So we are trying to move forward. I understand there was a positive meeting on Monday afternoon with the Assistant Minister and members of the Lido steering group. So we are looking to find a solution.
That's all I doubt. I think my question was really that initially I had understood that vacant possession was imminent. Now it's been given to the end of 2025. Are you saying that's because of revised legal advice on that, or what?
It's advice. We've got to be fair, and if we haven't done something which is correct, or if other people don't think it's correct, we have to think, what is the point in going into litigation, spending money legally? There's no point. For the sake of 12 months, just get on with it. And that's, sometimes you've got to make pragmatic decisions, haven't you, whether that's as a politician or in life.
Okay. Right. And does what happened with the Lido affect your thinking for future processes with regard to this? I mean, will there be a different process in future?
Well, I've bought a pair of braces to go with my belt, I can tell you that. I think you always learn, don't you? You always learn. We're in a tender process, expressions of interest process at the moment, and we look forward to working with the parties that have expressed an interest.
On this particularly, did just to understand how the process went when the current tenants were issued their vacant notice, had legal advice been sought then to make sure that everything had been in order with the law of?
I think we should be looking forward rather than backwards, but in essence, there's been no lease, no utilities paid, no rent paid since I think February 2021. We believed that enabled us to gain vacant possession. That we offered a license for the summer because people had booked events for the summer. We had to think of those people. I still believe that is the case. However, pragmatically, there is this law, I think it's 1919, I've got the date right. And so that's why Christmas Day is important, because my family were evicted on Christmas Day when I was a young boy, because our lease had expired, and we had to leave the farm we lived on Christmas Day. So I'm very familiar with Christmas Day. The pragmatic solution is to issue a lease, and I will repeat here, it will be a government lease signed by the tenant. It will not be the tenant's lease signed by the government, and hopefully we can conclude that today or tomorrow.
I think where the panel is trying to, I understand you're saying to look forward, but with the Conotab's question about changing processes in the future and making sure that the department is not put in this situation again. I think where we're trying to establish was legal advice sought to around all those issues that you were saying that there was in an interesting situation.
I would like to assure the panel I've not been doing things off the back of a cigarette packet. I've been seeking advice every step of the way. I was in the UK attending my stepmother's funeral. That's why I was not in the States Chamber for the debate, which didn't happen. I'm a pragmatist. I was on the phone to colleagues and fully support the decision that was taken. So.
Yes, you may already answer this question, but it really was really to ask whether, in the light of your experience with the Lido, are there any wider changes that you feel should be made to the way in which JPH manages its relationships?
I think I said I'm a bit mixed up in terms of our last hearing or the hearing before, but I think I've told this panel before that we're looking at how we manage property and estates, because clearly we've got to do it better. That's not a reflection on the people that do the job. That's a reflection on the resource we've got. We need to focus on what I describe as our core business, and we need to look at doing things differently. I think I mentioned to you last time that the school SLAs, for example, were due to be signed at half term. They haven't been signed yet. What we have had is some positive meetings, and I think they're due to start being signed this week or next. We've had some positive meetings, and the output of that meetings is we're going to meet regularly with that group of tenants once or twice a year to talk about how things are going. So we're always learning, we can always improve. We've got far too many buildings that we don't fully utilise, and we work hard as a team every fortnight looking at what's happening with those, and we are starting to make some progress and see some light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you. Yeah. And reverting specifically to the Lido, can you outline the maintenance works which will now take place at Lido, and whether the responsibility for the maintenance lies with Jersey Property Holdings Limited or the tenant?
Well, the tenant will have some responsibilities, but the major works that are currently taking place are very much the responsibility of Jersey Property Holdings. So the CCTV was operational from the 1st of November. Although we've got to request access to view that CCTV, we're looking at how we can do that remotely in the future. But Tim, do you want to say anything about the current works?
Yes, there's some redecoration works that are ongoing, but there's also, given the nature of the public amenity and its age, works to the pool wall, the retaining wall, the capping, the footings of that to stop it leaking, and the sluice gates as well. Again, bearing in mind that it's a Victorian structure. The focus is very much on maintaining its functionality. So the redecoration works is depending on the weather. We're hoping to get it done before Christmas, but it may roll over into next year. And the works on the pool retaining wall again will finish early in 2025. And as I say, those are aimed at maintaining the facility as a community function.
Yes, so all these works relating to, might call them the sea walls,
Yes.
they're all within responsibility of infrastructure and you're carrying them out?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that. Sorry.
David, can I just ask clarification on that point? Are you saying the sea-wall improvements taking place currently at Ardè Park form part of the overall budget of the £500,000, or are the £500,000 separate to that? Is that a different?
It's all part of the same
It's
budget.
part of the same budget, the same £500,000. Okay, thank you.
Can I just add just a bit, extra bit of clarity? We've seen photos of diggers and works happening to this sea wall at Ardè Park rather than the retaining wall.
That's not us.
That's not you.
No.
That's another project.
Yes.
Okay.
There's two things that are going on. One, we have ongoing programmes of maintenance to our sea defences that protect town and the mainland island, and then we also have strategic works that are planned for that, and then the Lido sits amongst that but separately.
Okay. And those are two separate budgets.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, that's not what Mr. Daniels just said. He's implied that the £500,000 budget is actually for both Seawall and Lido. You're saying no, there's two different pots of money.
Apologies, that was a misunderstanding. I thought
Okay.
you were referring to the wall of the pool.
No, I was talking about the wall of the seawall itself.
That is a separate budget.
That's a separate budget. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's all that sea wall. Again, getting away from the Lido, Jersey Property Holdings and its portfolio generally, you've referred to, you're trying to get it better managed. Is it set up properly to enable you to carry out the function that you think it should so carry out?
Well, I think the Chief Minister and Chief Executive asked this question yesterday, and I think they both agreed that it wasn't. And I'm working with them to try and find better ways of doing things. So I do think there are improvement opportunities, no doubt about that, in my opinion. And being a minister is not like being a chief executive. You're responsible for the bus, but you're not driving it every day. So perhaps we'll talk about buses after, but it's very different. If I was the chief executive, there'd have been lots of change introduced in the last 9 months. I'm not the chief executive of Property Holdings. I'm the minister. So what I've got to work is on the strategy and the policy, and that's the work that I'm undertaking, and the team do the day-to-day management of it. Yeah.
That's an interesting comment, because some of the state-owned properties were set up very recent and enable executive decisions to be taken without going through the assembly. Are you suggesting?
Well, I'll remind you of the point I made last time. Property Holdings, 19 years old, no service level agreement with tenants in 19 years. Now, there's been some terrific work done this year, both by Jersey Property Holdings and the team at Sipes, to rectify that. But why has it taken 19 years? And that's the level of challenge that we've got. And so people are doing their very best each and every day, and we should give them credit. During the last week, I've seen the work getting done at Belroyal Toilets, West Park Toilets, the Central Market. We've got banners up to say Jersey Property Holdings. We do not tell people how long the works are going to last, what work we're doing, how much we're investing, and that's a simple explanation. The same could be said, I'm sure, for Ardè Park. We should be telling people what we're doing, why we're doing it, how long it's going to take. And there's some very quick wins that we can do, and the team are working on those quick wins. But each and every day, the team come in and do their very best.
Not to criticise the team, or it's the actual structure. And
So I think I've told this panel more than once that I am working on how we could do things differently, and in my opinion, better. So I look forward to updating you, hopefully at the next meeting, with what that might look like.
I think just the last question, Conor Talbot, we need to move on.
Sorry,
We've got
okay, yes.
lots
Apologies. Yeah, the Leakey Youth Centre, we note that a feasibility study has been completed on this and will remain valid will it remain valid in 2028 when the project recommences?
Well, I think it's important to say that I think that the JEP today suggests that the programme is ready to go. It's not ready to go at all. Leakey is currently feasibility stage. There's still detailed design works to take place, and planning approval has neither been sought or given. So we would not be able to spend £2.5 million next year because we'd be going through that process. Again, back to what can we actually do in the time we've got. Leakey currently has a youth facility. Yes, it needs some attention, and in fact on tomorrow afternoon I'm visiting both Leakey Samurai School and Highlands College because I was horrified when I saw the photographs of Highlands College, absolutely horrified. But we have had to make a decision as a council of ministers that with all of the development in St Helier, that the priority and the funding we've got available to us needs to provide a youth facility in St Helier. And we need to do some work on Leakey to make sure that it's welcoming. I think we can do some work with the team at Leakey to try and get more access to FB Fields, for example. And so we need to try and find a way of helping the youngsters there, but they have got a facility. We need to make sure it's tidy, but we have to invest the money we've got. We have to make choices. They are difficult choices, and the SIPes have chosen town, and I fully support their decision.
And Minister, on that, how long will it take? Because St Helier Youth Centre has not gone through any of the stages yet, I assume. So it's starting from the beginning. What's the timeline looking like when we see Leakey, for example, getting to a feasibility study? But I believe that's taken a couple of years to get to that point. What realistically are we?
It's taken, sorry to interrupt, I think it's taken longer than a couple of years to get to where it's got to. I think you can go back to Leakey probably 4 or 5 years and see that it's been spoken about.
Exactly. So
But
what's the St Helier Youth?
I'll remind you, there's no detailed design. There's no planning approval. And
absolutely understand, but more about where, for realistic understanding of how far we're going to get in this term of government for the St Helier Youth Project. Where will it get to within 2 years? Understanding that and seeing a very similar proposal at Leakey, and as you've just said, it's taken a number of years to get to. How far will we be seeing anything, going forward with the St Helier Youth Centre?
I'd need to come back to you with the detail of that, but the work is underway with Leakey. The team will work with the town and with our probably Holland's team.
But it's driven by the people who are going to operate and use it. So the process is driven by sites stating their requirement and understanding what it is that they want from the site. And we are supporting them in as much as we are providing architectural support and project management support in terms of how you put together that project. So
it's at the brief stage. I know that you were very helpful in providing us with the different stages of a project, going from concept to kind of actually a build. So at the moment, it's at kind of the brief stage within the department. You'll then need to be doing a feasibility study.
Exactly.
And therefore, we can see as Leakey that potentially this is not, we will get planning permission by 2026, 27.
I don't have the specific timeline, but we can get that to you.
It would be great. Thank you very much. But we do need to move on. So, Deputy Ward.
Sure. Thank you. So this is about inland flooding. One of the concerns that the panel highlighted in its review of the proposed budget was that it felt was a lack of funding for contingency planning. The budget does provide for shoreline management and sea defences improvement, but there seems to be less focus on inland flooding. Would you like to make a comment about that?
Yeah, so we have done quite a lot of work actually on inland flooding, and only yesterday I was at a presentation with both the Environment Minister and the Treasury Minister looking at potential solutions for one area of the island. I think it's worth noting that each of the parish magazines this month or the winter editions will have a full page advert advising people of what they can do and what they shouldn't do to help, because there's a lot of things that landowners can do themselves.
Like to give an example?
Absolutely. So if you look in St. Peter's Valley, you'll see that the brook there has been cleared and a super job has been done. There's land on the island which hasn't been touched for over 20 years and which contributes to flooding, in localised flooding. And just by simple, I say simple, I don't underestimate what you need to do, but by land management, more can be done to prevent flooding. Simply by unblocking gutters and downpipes, you can ensure that you get water flowing. Maintaining your water courses. Equally, when there is a flood, we want to encourage drivers not to race through that standing water, because the impact it has is it pushes the bow wave into people's properties, and when you go and visit people who've been flooded, it's not a nice experience, as you know, and some of that is preventable. So we want to try and encourage people to do that, and we also want to remind people that it is not, I believe it is against the law to blow leaves from your property out into the road, which then in turn can go and block a drain. So we're trying to educate people. I would like to see this happen every year, where we get that information out to the public. It's a first attempt. I'd like to see more graphics and more information, but we can do more. But in terms of Grand Vaux, for example, we've done some terrific work there. We can't rest on our laurels, but we've done an awful lot since the incident almost 2 years ago.
Yeah. Thank you. So next question. So can you elaborate on measures that are on hand, consider manage? Well, so we just said that, sorry. Are you content that sufficient funding and emergency planning is in place should there be a sudden flood event?
Well, I think I've spoken in the past about how we have to respond. Before we came in here today, I was told there may be snow in Jersey tomorrow, a 25% chance of snow tomorrow. Well, guess who will be out there if there is? Salting the roads, etc. It'll be this team. So there is an element of money in the budget for events, weather events. We think that we can do more, and I don't know if you've had the briefing from Steve Fitzgibbon on flood defences, sea defences. So he's presenting to the engineers group tomorrow evening, which I'm delighted to say sold out. So there's lots of work going on. We're working with partners, be that parishes, Jersey Water, to try and find solutions. And we've got some interesting solutions. And we're also, again, I'll use that word, we are using some external resource to check some of our findings, which is an appropriate thing to do. So there's some really good work there, and the Treasury Minister and the Environment Minister are going to meet with myself and the team again in a couple of weeks' time, actually at Balazan, so they can see the, I'm going to use the wrong word, telematics, what's the word I need? Telemetry. Thinking of vehicles. They'll see the telemetry there, which covers the whole island, and there's some terrific stuff, and I think you've been and seen that stuff.
Yeah. That's fine, thank you. Yes, good to liquid waste, yeah. So liquid waste now, is a fun topic. Minister, can you provide the panel with an update as to when the first tower pumping station project will be completed, and what is the spend to date?
Oh, good question. I don't know the spend to date. We hope the work will be finished in the next week or so for the rise in Main. The actual project is due to be completed by December, and only last week I visited the tunnelling that's been done at Victoria Avenue, which is a part of the solution for splitting the surface water. So that was really good to see. Do we have a figure, Ellen? Do you know a figure off the top of your head?
I think it's around 1.4 million for relining the works, but I can get back to you.
That's fine, thank you. Okay, so in line with the Bridging Liquid Waste Strategy, can you tell the panel which is the next major project for work which will be progressed, and when will it start?
So we've got work which carries on. So we are in the process of doing the Bonwy sewage treatment works and the Montmeadow extension, which I should say was all in train before I came minister. It was not a result of me being a minister. We've got St Peter's will be our big target for the first piece of work. That's almost £8 million investment. We're in the final negotiation, I think, for the land, and we expect to go out for tender in January.
Mm-hmm. And is that to do with the new development happening in St Peter? Is that
Yeah,
all
so
that they're linking up, enabling that
So
development?
there's two pieces of work. There's the strategic storage projects. Have we given these guys a presentation?
It's after.
Okay.
After this.
Oh, right, okay. So you'll see Tom, he'll explain all the details of that. And then we've got the network upgrades so we can get the product from the homes to the storage and off again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Okay, move to Deputy Coles.
So thank you very much. We received a briefing at the end of the assembly last week on the single use vapes and the restrictions that are coming in.
Yeah.
So please, can you explain the purpose and the rationale for the ban?
Well, I think it's one of our, I come at this from the impact of them being disposed and thrown away and us having to manage that. That's where we come at it from. I don't look at it from a health aspect. For me, it's the impact of them. So I think Jersey is not alone in bringing forward this legislation. I think the UK and Guernsey are both almost aligned to us in terms of the timing. And so I think it's really important that we do this. I suppose I'm more conscious of it now, but I see these things everywhere I go. And it seems to me every time I go in a shop, they're refilling the display cabinets. So it's really important that we get this. I think when we see the amount of young people using these things as well, it's a real concern. And I'm told it's £10 a week difference. It's £10 a week cheaper on average to use a refillable vape versus versus using single-use vapes. So there may be some benefit for users as well.
Can you explain why the existing single-use plastics legislation has been chosen as the vehicle to enact this ban?
Well, we've taken advice on that, and the advice was the quickest route to make the change was to use that law. And I think there are other things we could do with that law, but what we don't want to do is to delay the introduction of this piece of legislation by adding to it. But I think we should consider in the future what else could we do in that area. So officers keep talking to me about plastic knives and forks, for example, but there are other things as well.
Do you see any future risks to amending this piece of legislation based on single-use plastics for this purpose? The panel notes that manufacturers are already redesigning single-use vapes to find ways that they may not apply within this ban.
Well, I think that's. I think with the very introduction of vapes is a result of what's been happening with other products in the market, and I'm sure the value of the market will see further investment in how do you find a solution to get around it. So, we're trying to solve this problem at this time. I don't underestimate the investment that companies will put in to find workarounds, and we would urge people in the meantime to dispose of these things properly and safely, not discard them in hedges and on pavements. Are
you aware of any intention on the part of the ministerial colleagues to other legislation which is relevant to regulation and sale of vapes and nicotine products? And do you anticipate any future widening of a ban, and how would this be achieved?
I have to say, I'm not. If I should be, then I apologise, but I'm not aware of any.
It's just good to know, because obviously there are health impacts with regards to nicotine products, and obviously how they're.
So I think what I should say is the Treasury Minister is looking at the potential for taxing vapes going forward, and Public Health is exploring the options of a legal framework around vapes. So I am reading ahead, aware of that.
Good. That's good. What steps will government take to ensure that retailers and consumers are aware of the new restrictions?
Well, I think we've already done some consultation ahead of bringing forward the legislation. There is a 6-month period where people will be able to dispose of their stock if they can prove it was purchased before the legislation comes in. And, you know, we will have to work hard, particularly with suppliers, to help them. I think that's the thing, you know. This is not about making people break the law. This is about encouraging better behaviour.
Has any consideration been given to implementing a take-back system so that single-use vapes, which have been purchased prior to the ban coming into force, are recycled rather than dumped, should the stock have been more than that 6-month allowance?
I don't think we have considered that. I'm not sure where we'd get the funds for that.
Okay. So moving on now to recycling and food waste. Can you provide the panel with an update on recycling, and if there has been further discussions on the development of a uniformed recycling process across all parishes?
I think it's fair to say that progress is slow, or slower than we had hoped. In fact, the Assistant Minister tells me that there was a discussion on Monday at the Committee de Connotab about recycling, and parishes have asked for a longer lead-in time for us if we were going to remove any bring-back sites. So we're just going to start some further discussions around that. Yeah.
That's a possibility, is it, Minister?
Well, I'm not going to make a promise, Constable, but you know, we've heard, and we've also heard from members of the public how they enjoy using the facility. So, you know, we've got 9 parishes that do curbside recycling and pay for that through their rates. We've got 3 parishes that don't offer curbside recycling, don't contribute towards bring banks. So, is that fair and equitable? Probably not, I'd suggest. But we've got a lot more work to do. The head of recycling, I forget what his title is, but he has been out meeting with constables, and I'm due an update with him shortly.
Thank you, and I think because of time, we'll probably send some more questions related to this area to you later. So moving on to La Collette Headland, what is your understanding of the permission that is currently in place for the height of hazardous waste mound at La Collette?
I think we're still waiting for the permit for the change to La Collette. I think we're still waiting on some of the planning obligation agreements to be finalised. So we did have the support of the planning committee back in the summer, but I do believe we're waiting on the finer detail.
Thank you. And what plan is in place for dealing with the situation in which receipt of waste would breach the current permission?
So we have just signed a new contract for both inert waste, and also worth mentioning we've signed a new contract for metals, both of those after a thorough tender process. And so we think that will help us in terms of reducing the volumes. You know, we're also looking at how do we reduce, and I think the planning panel, one of the things they spoke about was increasing the cost of hazardous waste to try and dissuade people from generating it. So there's always the balance to make sure that if they do generate it, it's handled appropriately. So we're looking at how we can do that with the teams.
And what discussions have you had with developers on the impact this may likely to have?
I've had little discussions. I did attend a construction council briefing, which the topic of Collet and waste was discussed, but unfortunately I had to leave to attend another meeting. But officers gave a presentation the same day they presented to the construction council and members on the ICE programme.
And you mentioned about a new contract with recycling of potentially recycling waste. Will you be announcing the operator soon? Has it been announced?
I don't think it has been announced. I think we're in the final throes of negotiating the contract. Yeah. So we're in discussion with the preferred bidder, and those people that were unsuccessful have been notified.
And how much of the inner waste produced by the demolition of Overdale Hospital has been recycled?
Oh, if you'd have asked me that last week, I could have given you the figures because I had them in a briefing I was given. I was quite impressed with the level of recycling that's been done on site. And if you go to Overdale, you can see some of the product that's still there. We can get back to you with those figures because I know they're available.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I would just ask, Minister, the panel does routinely ask for the capacity of obviously approved permission and perhaps pending permission.
Yeah.
And I wondered whether you, in your pack today or one of your offices, would have the latest update. And I know other members who are not on the panel have asked questions to those answers, but obviously an up-to-date knowledge on that would be...
Yeah. Sorry, I don't have that.
The hazardous waste for the Eastern Headland, at the moment with our estimates of the material that's coming over the weighbridge, we think we've got 10 years. What we are doing, and we're waiting for that advice as well from planning of what their expectations of us, of what else can we do to minimise that and extend that life longer than 10 years. And as the Minister's mentioned, that could be looking at increasing our charges, working with the developers to making sure that they are recycling as much of that material, or making sure that that material isn't getting taken out if it doesn't need to.
Sorry, and that 10 years is regarding what you applied for back in 2023,
yes,
but not what is currently approved from earlier in that year, which was obviously a retrospective permission. So, because just back to the chair's point, there's a risk
that September, from the approvals that have been given for the Eastern Headland, our estimate is 10 years.
Sorry, is that to the height of 30.5 or 35?
That's to the height of 30.5.
30.5. You've got 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't see a risk that there will be a breach of any permission, as the chair said.
I think what we're trying to do is get the planning obligation agreements agreed and signed off, but we can come back to you with the data. Probably Oliver. Yeah.
Do you feel that the developers, though the Minister wasn't there in the discussions around the Construction Council, took on board the issue and feel that there is more, want to be able to recycle and to use other facilities as well, so to try to reduce that? Has it been taken on board, and have you seen results of that
I think there's
discussions?
certainly been some really good conversations, and certainly for our waste team are getting a lot of requests for advice. So when they're filling in their waste plans and stuff, which they need to do as part of their planning applications, they're certainly seeking my team's advice for that and seeing what they could be doing. So I think that has been really positive on that side.
And I can now tell you that we crushed approximately 12,000 cubic metres of rubble on site for reuse in the development of the acute facility at Overdale, and recycled more than 4,000 cubic metres of materials from the site, preventing unnecessary landfill. Thank you, Tris.
And Deputy Curtis, to carry on with for the energy.
We're going to move on to energy strategy. And Minister, could you provide the panel with an update as to the preliminary discussions you are having with the Minister for the Environment on the development of an energy strategy?
Well, it is the Minister of Environment's area. I do work with him in that area. My responsibilities are the gas law, the ERF, the Energy Recovery Facility. I think I've spoken to you before about my intention to get a framework agreement for solar panels on our property holdings buildings, and also we're responsible for the use of energy within those buildings. The new office building, of which people are moving in as we speak, is of the highest standard and won an award, I believe.
I got the Brian. Forgive me, it's either excellent or very good, but it's the highest rated environmental award in the Channel Islands at the moment.
Yeah. So I expect us to be spending more time and energy. I think as the Environment Minister responded recently to Deputy Gardner, that this work is scheduled for next year.
Okay, brilliant. Focusing on one element, and of course we have 40 minutes left, so we need to obviously be quite succinct. But focusing with one energy source in particular, could you provide the panel with an update on the conversations that you've had with Island Energy around the island's gas infrastructure network?
Yeah, I've had several conversations face-to-face with members of the leadership team at Island Energy. I've not met the new person in charge, but I met the predecessor. And you know, there's some good work being done in terms of catching up. I would use the term catching up with the premises that no longer receive gas. So I think there's some good work being done, but I've not had an update in the last 3 weeks on that.
Are you planning a meeting anytime soon with the new CEO?
Yeah, well, we officers have regular dialogue with the team, but yes, I would hope to meet them before Christmas.
Okay, and from your conversations with past leadership, what understanding do you have about their plans for the network and service in Jersey?
Well, I think they've demonstrated the work that they have done. If you live where the chair and I live, you'll be aware that they've been working what seems like months in one specific area. But they have invested significantly in bringing people to the island to help them with their network, and we welcome that investment.
Okay, so move on to the bus contract. I'm going to whiz through a few questions here. How does the new contract compare to the previous arrangements in terms of scope, funding and service levels, specifically with regards to sustainability and meeting the island's net zero goals?
Okay, so we're in the final throes of agreeing the bus contract. We announced our preferred tenderer recently, but part of that bid was to ensure that we got closer to our goals, and I think the successful bidder had the best roadmap, if I can use that term, to getting to double deckers and renewable fuel on other vehicles. So the plan is for a phased approach, but we should have no vehicles over 8 years from year 2 onwards. And I think that's really encouraging. So in terms of the financials, I think there'll be an appropriate time to talk about the financials, which is perhaps not today whilst we're still in discussions with them. But we're encouraged by the offer. We're looking at additional services. We're looking at, I keep talking to you about the town link. The growth in the last 2 months has been slower because of Bath Street being closed. But next week we restart, or the bus operator restarts promoting the town link. But overall this year we've seen it's now down to 54% growth. The first 8 months of the year was 74% growth. So that's significant numbers. A lot of those people are seniors and or disabled. So over 24,000 journeys have been made by people who are either senior citizens or disabled. So that's really encouraging. 23% of the journeys are made by youngsters. So that's also encouraging that those youngsters hopefully will become bus users of the future.
Okay, so I'm going to, sorry.
Also bus use because it's very seasonal. So it peaks in the summer and always drops off in the shoulder months.
In the winter, yeah. Okay,
we will be promoting the town link for Christmas shopping, because now you can get a through ticket. You only pay once, and so you can reach all parts of town. The other thing we're doing for Christmas shopping, not bus related, but we're reducing the payable hours at Charles Street car park from 10 p.m. to 8 p.m. So we've seen how it's gone, and so we're going to try at 8 p.m. So hopefully that'll work.
Sorry to deviate, but does that change require ministerial order to make, given that fees are set by the minister in order?
So I signed a ministerial. I don't know if it's a decision or an order. I think it's a decision.
Just saying ministerial decision.
Decision
I think,
rather than
change the parking
order.
But we're doing
That
it with
it's-
there's a quick way of doing which is it's
Starts
formalised
next.
later on.
Starts next week.
Okay.
Starts next week. So I think there's a week's lead-in time. But I signed.
But that
The decision yesterday.
that is a change to the order, the parking charge order, or is there a different legislative? It's just an interesting you've picked up.
Sorry, it's to the times, not
times.
to yes, and
Yes.
that's it is easier to change.
I'm just going to ask one final question. This is a combined issue, and this is around ownership of assets. Are you able to confirm whether Liberty Bus owns the bus fleet, and if not, who owns the vehicles?
Well, I have to ask Tris if it's a parent company or if it's.
So the way the bus contract works is slightly different. So government underwrites the lease purchase costs in order that the company can get sovereign debt type rates of interest. And part of that agreement is we've got step-in rights over those vehicles. So if anything untoward happened with the contract, government could step in and take over the fleet. Those that are still under hire purchase agreements, where a bus is fully paid up, it's generally towards the end of its serviceable life, then that is owned by Liberty Bus.
Okay, thank you. That's
Or
great.
CT Jersey.
It just leads me on to about assets and how we manage and own assets. So panel notes the various models for owning and managing different assets. The budget proposes purchasing and owning, for instance, the office rather than the main government building, rather than continuing a tenant model. Is there an overall strategy for asset management, and can you elaborate on what that strategy may look like?
My preference would be to buy it.
Okay.
I'm not sure I would have entered into the original agreement, but I think the first opportunity we get to purchase it, I think that's the appropriate thing to do. Absolutely appropriate thing to do. I think it really would depend on the facility. Sometimes it's more appropriate to rent or to lease. It really depends on your appetite for depreciation. But the new office building, I think, is absolutely first class. I don't know if you had an opportunity to visit yet, but it's absolutely first class. And I think we will be in there for a long, long time. So I think it's absolutely appropriate.
The question is more directed about attitude in terms of strategies to different types of assets that the government owns.
I don't think the government's any different.
There isn't a standard model.
To a business. Sometimes it's appropriate to lease things. Sometimes it's appropriate to own things. But I think the general preference would be to own things if it's for a long term. But there are times when it's more appropriate to lease if it's for a short period.
Right, pass you over to the last couple of questions.
Thank you, Minister. We're just coming to the end of our hearing for 2024. A question to you really is, what do you consider to be your main achievements to date?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think something we had to do was the La Collette that we've just spoken about. I think I can't take any credit, but the bus tender I think has been run exemplary, and I pay tribute to those people involved. The same people also involved in the inert waste and the metals. I think we've seen significant improvements in some areas. I should have thought about that question, shouldn't I, really? But I would pay tribute to the team, as I try to do every time I sit at this table. You're going to have a presentation shortly, and it's first class, absolutely first class, and we will have spent what we predicted to spend in terms of capital program for the year. I'm sure of that by the end of the year. That doesn't mean to say we've been out on a spending spree in the last few weeks. It means it's been planned, and I think I've told you before how we review that. So I can't take credit for anything. I'd put all the credit to the officers.
Thank you, Minister. And what do you consider the immediate or most important priorities for 2025, and what would be the challenges?
Well, I'd say next week. The budget is critical because, as I said earlier, we've got £2.5 million allocated for public realm, and people want to take £3.7 million from £2.5 million. My hope is that the Assembly will support the investment, the much needed investment in our product in the public realm, and allow us to get on and do the job that we're here to do. I think property holdings will be I would expect to leave property holdings in what I describe as a much better position than when I arrived. So that would be my focus for next year, as well as identifying the paper plates and spinning the China ones.
Thank you very much, Minister. And that's the end. We've come to the end exactly on time of our hearing.
30 minutes early.
I had it 12:30 in my diary, so.
Oh, I had it. Fantastic, but we don't actually have any questions further than that. But it'd be nice when I was saying to some people, shorten your questions. So I apologise. Well, we are 30 minutes early, but we only have a few questions that we would need to ask. So maybe we can go back to the recycling and waste if Deputy Coles wanted to have any more. Otherwise, I think we can just send a few questions to you, Minister. And that would actually finish our things. So I don't think we need.
If I could ask one question, Minister, we've accelerated through a lot of questions today, and you've been very keen to support your teams and to speak about openness, and you've spoken very openly. Is your plan to see that actually trust in the services your teams provide and that visionary part moving forward is amplified and delivered in 2025 and beyond? Transparency, openness, and kind of engagement with your team in a really positive way.
Well, I have to say that's how I try to do things. It's not always possible. It's not always possible. That's for sure. But I've offered you briefings and visits, and I will continue to do that because you're engaged with us, and we want to engage with you because I don't have all the answers. I'm doing my best, very ably supported by the team we've got here. And, I look forward to working with you next year. Hopefully I'll carry on doing this job because I enjoy it. And there's lots to learn, but we've got some fantastic people. We can always improve, all of us, myself included. And that's what we strive to do, is to keep being better.
Can I just...
Yes, of course. Let's to the... Yeah, okay. Vice Chair first. Thanks. And then the Constable.
Just while I've got the Director of Property Holdings here, and it was a discussion we have raised earlier in the year, tenancies for market traders. Has there been any progress on that scenario that you can...
Well, there has, and again, it's an area that the Assistant Minister is leading on, but both the Assistant Minister and I met with market traders last week. We have, our ambition is to give people 9-year leases in the market. And we hope that we expect to write to them again this week. So we believe we're getting very close.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, an extra one really. JEC have announced an ambitious project for updating their network, and it's more than occurs to me that's going to involve a major upheaval of all roads. To what extent are they involved with you in planning that?
Well, I do meet with colleagues from the electric company, but we haven't discussed which road is going to be dug up when. And I answered a question to Deputy Coles last week in the chamber. The teams do liaise closely with Triss's team, and it's not only going to be public roads, it's going to be by roads as well. And I think there'll be probably as much, if not more, work done in by roads, because it seems to me it's going from substations to properties, and I think they'll have as much, if not a bigger impact on the parishes. But there's the monthly DUREF meetings, that was good.
The initial of it, there's the joint utilities meeting where people discuss that, and then because major projects like this merit special consideration because the project can create a bow wave, and so you can sort of work out how you fit the other projects in around it and behind it.
St Saviour's Road is a good example of a road that really needs to be resurfaced, but we know there's a lot of work still to be done in St Saviour's Road. So it's important that we finish that work before we actually invest in resurfacing that road. And I think there, you know, you can go onto the government website and you can see resurfacing plans to 2030 of the roads that we plan to resurface and micro asphalt.
That's correct, yes.
Micro asphalt, which isn't the same as resurfacing. What the micro asphalt does is it prolongs the life of the structure of the road, and the team are doing some good work there. And you know, the Esplanade, which was done in half term, I think it was, it causes disruption. But when you see the level of work and the speed they did the work, I think they completed it 48 hours earlier than expected. So some good stuff there.
Yeah, you touched on the point. I mean, I appreciate the appeal to the main roads, but parish roads, you've got 12 parishes going to be, they will have their own.
Yeah, I think it may be worth inviting, this is probably not under my remit, but it may be worth inviting the JEC to a future committee meeting to discuss their plans, because all of those will be done under traffic works, so all have to have approval of the roads committee to take place at the time they ask for, but it'd probably be worth getting an update from the JEC at a future committee meeting.
Thank you for that. Will do.
If that's no more questions, I know there was a few little questions that we skipped thinking about the time, but on the bus contract and also on the recycling. So we'll probably send those to you, but they were minor questions versus those that were actually asked. So I'd like to thank you, Minister, and your team and officers for attending today, and like to...
Thanks, and can I thank you for your genuine engagement over the last 9 months. It's, you know, somebody asked me about Scrutiny today, I said I enjoy it. But, yeah, I do.